Man, oh man. You see the Colts have a good draft, and the next thing you know, it's nothing but internet issues. Clearly, the world is falling apart because of this. The question, of course, is did the Colts have a good draft? I mean, can they do anything right? Just because they do it well on paper doesn't mean it's going to translate to the field. Last year at this time, Indianapolis Colts fans were saying, my gosh, what a good draft. They've been saying, hey, take a look at these picks for the last 6 years under Chris Ballard, but the winning hasn't taken place. And then again, Chris Ballard hasn't really had a chance to draft a quarterback either. Maybe this is the start of a very interesting turnaround. Guys, welcome to the show. Good to be with you. Presented by Americans for Prosperity. AmericansForProsperity.org. Economic liberty, free speech, and economic liberty. That's how these guys get paid. My gosh, some big contracts are going to be happening. Let me bring in JMB from 93.5, 107.5, The Fan in Indianapolis, the voice of sports in Indiana. Let's start with an overall grade, man. You've been through this. You've been through the ringer with GM Chris Ballard. You've seen him make picks where you're like, all right, that looks really good on paper, yet somehow things don't gel on the field. Talk to me about your grade of this draft class and what this class has in common.
I don't really give grades out, but I will tell you this, Tony. I look at it this way. What he did address, now, would I have maybe gone about it a different way, maybe tried to take the top off a little bit more in a round 3 as opposed to trade back and get, those round 5 selections and all? Maybe. But you're right. What you said off the top is absolutely right. What we see on paper has to translate to the field, and none of us, and I mean none of us, including the ones that drafted these guys, have any idea. But what I can tell you is this. From a standpoint of needs on this team, whether you're talking about cornerback or wide receiver or offensive tackle or tight end, that's what he went out and got. And that's what I said, go out and get. Thus, I can't sit here and shake my fist and be mad about that because all he did was what we thought he was going to do. But I'll add something to this. Chris Ballard, Tony, is always a guy that's looking for athleticism. Now, at the top end, let's just say 1 through 10 right now, for example, offensively and defensively, there is not a great deal of top-tier athleticism there. You could tell in this draft with the measurements of athleticism, they went out with that in mind. They went out with the athleticism. They went out with the speed. That's what Chris Ballard has been looking for. I'm not suggesting he's never looked for that before, but it certainly did seem like that there was more of a focus on that in this draft. And there was also a focus on, adding to, for example, a cornerback situation that needs it right now. Isaiah Rodgers and Dallas Flowers, and you're kind of looking at that as about it. So you add to that depth-wise. We just don't know how this is going to work out. We have zero idea about how any of this is going to work out. All I can tell you is he and they addressed what needed to be addressed. They may not have done it in the fashion which I or you or anybody else would have chosen, but they did address those needs.
Well, I mean, it starts at the very, very top, right? It starts right here. Anthony Richardson, going with the guy who's 20, going with a guy who only has 13 starts in his college career, going with a guy who's a 57% completion. But you talk about that athleticism conversation and Chris Ballard, GM, wanting athleticism. Not a person who doesn't say the dude's an athletic freak. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, he is. I had him on the show on Friday, too, and very humble, 20-year-old kid that seems like that he's mature beyond his years. Now, granted, I will compare that to my 20-year-old maturity, which is not even in the ballpark of this. He's going to need that, Tony. He's going to need that along with his athleticism. And as I said on my show, and I think I even sent it to you on Friday as well, this was 110% Shane Steichen's pick right here. 110%. There's no doubt. I mean, listen, did Chris Ballard have to sign off on it? Sure. Did Jim Irsay have to sign off it? Absolutely. But this was who Shane Steichen wanted, and that's what I wanted for this team. You bring in Shane Steichen, a first-year head coach, a very successful offensive coordinator, Tony, working with quarterbacks in the past, whether it's Phillip Rivers or Justin Herbert or Jalen Hurts. You want him to mold what he wants to mold, what he wants to work with. And that was 110% his selection in that draft. I don't think there's anything at all wrong with that either.
Let's go down the line a little bit
Yes.
to that number 2, and you end up with Julius, who they say is Juju Brents. That's how I first saw his name, who is an Indianapolis product, and then at Kansas State. Actually, I think he was somewhere else before Kansas State, and now back in Indy at cornerback. That's the Colts, at least understanding. We've got serious fundamental positions that are lacking. We already dealt off Stephen Gilmore. Let's fill this thing, and they do that with the number 2 pick. You like it?
Yeah, I do. I do. The only thing that he lacks that normally you see in a corner is that incredible speed. He is big. He can be physical, and he has been very good in his collegiate career. Yeah, I didn't mind that, Tony, whatsoever with Julius Brents. Julius Brents, a product of Warren Central High School, obviously coming out of Kansas State. That was somebody that we had talked about leading up to because there was a cornerback need, so many quarterback needs on this team. That is the direction we thought they may end up going, and that's exactly the direction they ended up going. So he is a guy that is more big. He's an outside cover, so he can be physical. The thing we're going to have to watch for is whether or not he's going to be able to keep up with speed guys. Now, listen, you run the 40, that's going to be different than when you're out there running in pads and a helmet, whatever.
Of course.
But still, that is something, Tony, that we're going to watch if that speed affects his coverage ability with the Colts at the next level.
Talking with JMV from 93.5, 107.5, The Fan, the voice of sports in Indiana. That brings us to this number 3 pick, which again, talk about position players, but this was a little more than position. Josh Downs from UNC, because with Downs, you're not just getting a receiver. You made the decision, we're getting a slot receiver. This is a guy who has had over 100 receptions in 2 years in this position at UNC. You're making the claim through this, JMV, that Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr., these are the guys, big guys to the outside. You now have a slot receiver who's meant to go up the middle in that almost Wes Welker kind of way, get punched in the face. And dear Lord, you're going to need a blocking tight end like no one's business now. Talk to me about what this position and this pick means to you for the future of this team.
I'm assuming what they're doing with this is looking at Josh Downs as a replacement for Paris Campbell and hoping that he can do things that Paris Campbell, unfortunately, was unable to do while he was here. Now, at the same time, Josh Downs is a guy at UNC, Tony, that was absolutely outstanding. I mean, he was outstanding as a player. He was dominant in the ACC. He's a bit on the smaller side. I think they list him as 5'10". He may not be 5'10". He is fast. He is productive. And that is exactly what you're looking for in this. So that's another one I didn't mind. Again, it may not be these name recognizable guys we thought were going to come off the board early in the second round, midway through the second round. You wait to get him in the third. But this is a guy, again, that shows some things here. It is athleticism. You got the speed. And the other thing is, Chris Ballard and company, they like dudes that go to the Senior Bowl, and they see at the Senior Bowl. They also like guys that are captains or leaders of their team. So these are all qualities that the Colts are looking for, and you can see among all these selections, they have most of those qualities as far as the Colts were concerned and going through that selection process.
You know, you bring that up about the Senior Bowl, and I find that kind of fascinating because it says to me that what Ballard is looking for, what GM Ballard is looking for is the almost the rote stuff, the basic stuff, and not the intangible stuff. If you could check these 3 boxes, right, on a Chris Ballard card, boom, you're getting on the team. It's done. Congratulations to you that there is this formula, and the formula doesn't seem esoteric. The formula doesn't seem, well, I take a look at this magic stew over here, and then I take a look at it from this 50,000 foot view over there. It says no. It's very IBM. Are you wearing the blue tie? Are you in the blue suit? Did you show up to the office on time? Congratulations, you're a Colt. Is that how he does it?
Yeah, it's weird too, because it really, I mean, as far as being able to select linebackers and being successful in the later rounds, and that's why you saw him trading down, because he's had a lot of success in doing that. You mentioned this at the outset. None of this crap matters unless it translates onto the field. And he's going into year number 7 where they have one playoff win. and a couple of appearances throughout that time. It just simply has not translated onto the field. But again, you've seen that not so subtle change here. They go from stiff quarterback after stiff quarterback after stiff quarterback, and now they're going young with athleticism. They're going with Shane Steichen as the new head coach, and then they really dial in on high level across the board, position by position with athleticism in this draft. He did do this a bit differently. His philosophy, as you mentioned, hasn't really changed, but he did look at this differently because, Tony, he has to. This team is lacking in higher level talent, higher level athleticism. They're lacking in winning, consistent winning. They're lacking in division titles. And they've also been lacking, Tony, in this. They've been lacking in fan interest. There's nothing that sunk the fan interest more than that clown show that we went through last season and covered last season. He needed to add some juice along with the type of talent that he is looking for. Again, this is just a surface view. But the surface view is I thought he went out there and addressed everything he needed to. Now it's just going to be up to them to put this thing together, which, Tony, it's something we've been searching for now for the better part of 6 years.
Let me share one more thing that I thought was interesting in this draft, and it was right here. It was Blake Freeland coming in with that fourth round pick, offensive tackle. We have seen that this is the highest paid offensive line in the NFL, and it's not an offensive line that could block anything. We have seen that the tackle position has been an issue since, I'm forgetting his name. Anthony, what's his name?
Anthony Costanzo is who you're looking for.
Right? Decides to take a walk. Is the tackle position the mystery here? What is it about having a good tackle that makes the rest of the line work? And is that why Kelly and Q weren't able to actually, hold their ground?
I'll give you two angles on this one, too. Number one is they're hoping that, what they have a left tackle moving forward and Bernard Ryman is going to be that answer. Now, granted, they don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. But they have their fingers crossed and believe that he can be the longer-term answer at left tackle. But there is way too little of a sample size that we have seen to believe that. Now, I will tell you this. Here's where I think the offensive line has a chance to get better. And this is all dependent on a 20, 21-year-old quarterback that's a rookie that's had 13 starts as well in the past in college. I think it's, again, going to be on the head coach. I think the head coach and his philosophy offensively to be able to change things around a little bit more than what you could do a year ago, have a more mobile quarterback. And really, if you're talking about the mobility of a quarterback, certainly Anthony Richardson has that. And if it's Gardner Minshew, Tony, to start the season, Gardner Minshew at least has some escapability, none of which was a trait of Matt Ryan, as we saw a year ago. And really, the escapability of Carson Wentz also came with the caveat of he may try to chuck it down the field left-handed, something like that. So, I mean, they haven't had that, and they haven't had this offensive philosophy, which is much different. And I would look to that as translating into a better offensive line than just looking at it position by position and suggesting, well, these guys suck and they're not any good. I do think that they're good. I just don't think that position-wise – I'll give you a great example. You go back to Phillip Rivers when they didn't have to protect because Rivers was snap the football and throw the football. They looked really good that year. They didn't have to sit there and protect and protect and protect. He got rid of the football. I think this is going to be a part of the offensive philosophy that you're going to see with the Colts as well. And with that, a lot of guys that looked terrible a year ago, offensive line-wise, I think will look better. That's my thought.
Well, looking better and being better are two very different.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
Things.
Yeah, no
So we talk about Anthony Richardson, and before I let you go, only one question: is Richardson a future star quarterback? You draft him, you know that he's got the skill set. You believe that Coach Shane Steichen, who worked with Jalen Hurts, who's worked with others, Abear and other Herbert. I always say Abear. Yes. My mistake. I'm old school like that.
That's okay, man.
The belief is he can mold him into a quarterback. If after 3 years he's not molded into a quarterback, is Anthony Richardson done? Is he RG3?
No. Did you catch what Chris Ballard said? I can't remember if we talked on Friday about this. I don't think we did. Chris Ballard, I mentioned this to you last time we were on. Rick Carlisle, the head coach of the Pacers, came on with me in October, and he said this, Tony. He said, hey, this is going to be a mess for a little bit. We're going to lose a lot of games, but don't get down on this team because it's for the betterment of the build and this team for the long-term future. And Chris Ballard said something that was very similar to that as well. So that's exactly what I expect. To me, what you got to have this year is you got to have maybe not consistency, maybe not winning the AFC South, but you have to have a team that gives you signs of hope, like the Pacers did, for example, in December when they gave you signs of hope that they're going to be good.
Right.
And then that gives you signs of hope for the future. I thought Chris Ballard laid that out on Friday, kind of in the fashion that Rick Carlisle did with me back in October. That's what you're banking on with this Colts team, to show signs that it's not the same old, that what they're building right now does have an opportunity, and that starts with Anthony Richardson. And I don't know if he's going to play in week number 1. Maybe he doesn't. But I would guess this coaching staff would like to see him in there sooner rather than later, even as a rookie 21-year-old quarterback, Tony, that has 13 starts collegiately under his belt. That's going to be an amazing transition.
I think they want to see him too, and I think Gardner should warm up a lot.
Yeah.
93.5, 107.5, The Fan, the voice of sports in Indiana. I appreciate taking the time to be with us, and I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to subscribe on Rumble, rumble.com/Tony Katz, and get everything that we're doing. I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.